Welcome to A to Z with B, an innovative talk show with Beatrice Tony Bailey. As your host, B will be discussing today's hottest topics and insights into different faiths, cultures, and religions. Now sit back, put your feet up, and let's see what's buzzing with B.
Hello, and welcome to A to Z with B. Thank you so much for tuning in. We certainly do enjoy your support of our program. Now, tonight's episode is sponsored by a donation given to our program by St. Paul Baptist Church. St. Paul Baptist Church is definitely a pillar in the Sacramento community and is led by the determined leadership of Dr. Ephraim Williams, who is determined to spread the good news.
6 years ago, no one predicted the economic storm poised to strike the U.S. and the Central Valley. It's been devastating.
In a new report today, the government says 44 million Americans now live in poverty. 4 million joined the list just last year.
It is the largest number of Americans living in poverty since they began keeping track 50 years ago.
People are worse off than even we may think.
6 years after the bubble burst, home prices have still not hit bottom.
We've had an 8-day losing streak in the Dow that in percentage terms puts it on par, close to that percentage loss those 2 days in 1929.
It was the worst day on Wall Street since the crash of 1987.
A 6-year economic nightmare. But then, there's God. Faithful and just through the storm. It's time to celebrate. St. Paul has weathered the storm and is now on the brink of burning its third mortgage, despite the economic climate. We have several celebrations leading up to the big day in June, with several guest speakers,
including the Reverend Maurice A. Bates.
I could not live without God. I can't make it without God. That I'm nothing without Him. I need Him every day just to make it. That's the unthinkable. Will a man rob God? No!
Celebrate what God has provided for us beginning this Sunday. Go to stpaulsac.org for dates and details. St. Paul Missionary Baptist Church has weathered the economic storm.
This is a family celebration. Mom, dad, teens, kids, everybody come on out.
Now, today's episode is entitled Just a Little Help from Your Friends, and it's about the prison ministry. I want to give you a little bit of background on this. Except for the grace of God, and we mean the grace of God, you could be in prison. Some of you may even have members of your family in prison. But because we do serve a God of second chances, we're going to be able to show you some information about a wonderful ministry and introduce you to some people who have been able to benefit from this ministry. Now, as you know, I take an awful lot of pride in introducing subjects to people that they don't know an awful lot about, and I feel that I am successful if at the end of the program my viewers stop and look at each other and say, wow, I didn't know that. Now, from time to time, I walk with a girlfriend of mine, and we walk around the complex, and we try to solve most of the problems of the world. Well, she happens to have a son who is currently incarcerated, and he is writing a book. And since she knew that I wrote a book, she asked me would I review the book for her son and kind of give me a feel about the way it was laid out. So Joseph was a man who had many colors. I'm a person who had many thoughts and opinions. But at any rate, I was talking to my friend, and I did the edits of the book, and then I handed it back to her, and I said, okay, he needs to make sure that his fonts are consistent and that the pagination is the way that it should be. He just needs to make these changes on his computer. So she looked at me and said, his computer? I said, yes, his computer. She said, he doesn't have access to a computer. Well, what do you mean? She said, he only has access to a computer if he's doing work for the prison. And I said, well doesn't he have a widescreen TV? Because everyone knows those people have a widescreen TV. She goes, no, they have little 6-inch or 7-inch TVs that they have in their cells, and they only can get the television stations that are piped in by the prison television network. I said, the next thing you're going to tell me is that these guys do not have weights. to be lifting weights. We all know they lift weights and they get really buffed up. And what she goes, B, they don't have any of that. The cells don't even have heaters in them. So I thought, I am totally ignorant on this subject. So I then touched bases with a couple of my other very knowledgeable friends, and much to my surprise, they felt the same way. They are totally ignorant of what really goes on behind prison. So at any rate, what I decided then that I would really do an episode on the prison ministry. This is particularly relevant now because there is a big reentry program that is afoot, particularly with the severe budget cuts that particularly the state of California is facing. A lot of these prisoners are being re-released into the community, and there's a lot of fear and concern about these release programs. And I think a lot of the fear and concern is because of a lack of knowledge. So since this is an educational program, it is our desire to inform you. Now, one of the best ways that I can do to inform you is to bring various experts on our show. And I happen to have a wonderful expert here, Mr. Richard Atchley. And Richard is the field director of the Prison Fellowship Ministry for Northern California and Northern Nevada. Welcome to our show, Richard.
Thank you so much, B.
Now, the slogan for your ministry says, changing lives, mind, and community through Jesus Christ?
That's right.
Okay. You want to tell us how long you have been involved in this ministry?
I've actually been with Prison Fellowship for 15 years.
Wow.
As you mentioned, by the grace of God. Mm-hmm. And I cover from Modesto to the Oregon border, and 10 state prisons here in California are my vineyard, where we do Bible studies, seminars, prayer meetings, special events, a lot of things for the men inside.
And see, I like that term, your vineyard. So you're doing some harvesting.
Amen.
Yeah, one thing that my girlfriend emphasized, she said, people need to know, in prison, there are mighty men of God that are in prison that just took the wrong turn. I mean, except for the grace of God. I mean, I don't expect to be sitting here talking to you all. I mean, if it wasn't for His grace and mercy, I don't know where, I kind of think I know where I would be, but it is through His grace and mercy. So this is really wonderful. Now, how did you get involved in this? I mean, were you in prison? Did you have family members in prison? Or there's a lot of other things. You could be working in Uganda.
That's
Why
right.
prison?
Well, God picked prison for me. I was actually in the TV and film business, had a radio talk show for a few years and really enjoyed that. But was doing some video projects and working with Promise Keepers, trying to bring a broadcast into the prison. Mm-hmm. And that's where I became familiar with Prison Fellowship. Also through Project Angel Tree at my church.
Well, that's a wonderful project. I know that our church has been very, very active with the Angel Tree Project. You want to tell us a little bit what that involves? It's kind of beyond Christmas, but tell us a little bit about that.
Right. Project Angel Tree provides gifts for children of prisoners, and the inmates actually sign up inside. And they could be living anywhere in the United States, but if their children live in Northern California, then the churches in this area, and you mentioned St. Paul's, they're one of our sponsoring Angel Tree churches, and we have hundreds of churches in Northern California that support these kids. We provide gifts to them at Christmas time, but we also do what we call year-round Angel Tree, where we try to get these kids into summer camps as well, so that we get them to a Christian camp during the summer, and it's an awesome opportunity for the kids to really get to know the Lord. Well,
how do children, this first I've heard of the summer camp, how does a person find out more about that?
Well, we have sponsoring churches that do that across the country. One of our most significant events is we do a football camp at Stanford University.
Wow.
And we work with the actual head football coach and the team. We usually get that information out to the inmates. And we can get it, churches can go to our website and find out all about summer camping.
And your website is?
www.pfm.org for Prison Fellowship Ministries.
And there's a phone number?
Well, the local number would be the number they could get all of us here is 916-354-2742.
Okay, that's a great place to start. Now let's talk a little bit about the history of the development of the Prison Fellowship Ministry. I can remember Chuck Colson. He was one of the Watergate guys.
That's right.
And I can remember when he went to prison, he was considered, and then he found God. It was considered one of the bigger jokes, of society. This evil, twisted man went to prison and found God. And my sanctimonious self, and I tried not to be as sanctimonious, but it is one of my things I need to work on. I always was amused when people said they found God. Well, I want to say, you found him. He was never lost. He wasn't lost. You were lost. But so I try to be a little bit more understanding. So tell us a little bit about Chuck. I mean, he went to prison and...
Well, Chuck Colson is still very involved in the ministry.
Okay.
This was 35 years ago you're talking about. Some of our viewers may not even have been born yet. But yes, during the Watergate conspiracy, Chuck accepted the Lord, went to prison, and when he got out, felt led to start a ministry to prisoners, ex-prisoners and their families. And so we're still operating today. The original premise was to take prisoners outside the prison walls, take them on retreat, and teach them about Christ and get them involved that way, and then return them to the prison. But the Department of Corrections wasn't too excited about that.
Well,
so,
a little risky, I would think.
Exactly. So now our ministry, the whole ministry is about going inside. And as you mentioned earlier, there's an incredible church behind the walls that most folks don't know about.
Interesting. It was interesting when I was doing some research on this prison ministry. They were talking about Colson, and a quote I'd like to read. It said that they felt that he was incapable of any humanitarian thought. This is what the media thought in the mid-'70s. So he is an excellent example of what God can do if you open your mind up to him, open your heart up to him, and allow this God of second chances to use you as a vessel, you know, to do his work. Now, you went, was this also really popular in Great Britain as well?
Yeah, actually we have an international ministry that not everybody is aware of. So we are in Great Britain. We're throughout the world. In almost any country that has an interest in having a Christian prison ministry, Prison Fellowship is involved in that. We have our headquarters back in Lansdowne, Virginia, and then we have folks, missionaries, if you will, that are doing prison ministry all over the world.
What's interesting, also when I was reading up on, because I have to do my homework, y'all, on the prison ministry, when they talked about Angel Tree wasn't started by some ladies' guild group, was it?
No, it was started by an ex-bank robber. Her name is Mary Kay Beard.
Oh, see, I thought I read it was an ex-bank robber, but I didn't know it was a woman.
Yes, it was. And then Prison Fellowship, she came to work for us. And it was her heart to begin this ministry that would not only minister to the children, but also the families. And so, yes, it was started by an ex-prisoner. We like to use the term post-crime achievers for ex-cons.
Crime achiever.
Yeah, so she was a post-crime achiever, someone who doesn't want to go back to prison, someone who no longer wants to follow that lifestyle. She was actually a world-renowned bank robber. And so she was surprised that the women would actually hoard toiletries and things at Christmas to give to their kids, because she wasn't inconvenienced to spend money on her family members.
Right.
Most of the ladies that were inside had nothing. And so they would actually store up shampoo and soap to give to their kids. The kids loved it because it came from mom. And that's how Angel Tree really started. And today we serve over 400,000 children every year. We've served over 7 million children over the last 25 years through the churches like St. Paul's, others, you know, not only in Northern California, but throughout the country.
That's important. Now, you also stepped out again on Unfamiliar Waters in 1997. You want to tell us a little bit about that particular initiative and what that's all about?
Remind me, is that Operation Starting Line? Or?
That's Interchange Freedom Initiative.
Oh, yeah. That's an exciting opportunity. We actually, I'll try to give you the short version, is George Bush, when he was governor in Texas, and Mr. Colson went to see a prison, a Christian prison in Brazil that was run by prisoners. And that became the impetus for what we now do called the Interchange Freedom Initiative. We call it
Let's back
IFI.
Up. A Christian prison in Brazil? I mean, how did they bring that about? I mean, only Christians who are in jail go there? I mean,
I know this is a short show, but we'll go ahead and I'll explain a little more. We had some prisoners in Brazil that actually saved other prisoners and the guards, or as we like to call them, the officers, when an incredible fire broke out. The governor pardoned those inmates because they had risked their lives to help these others. And they, so as he pardoned them, he says, is there anything else I could do for you? They said, we would love to do a Christian prison. And he gave them permission to do that.
Wonderful.
And so what that means, and what we've now replicated in the States, is we actually disciple men for 12 to 18 months before they go home. Then we get them a mentor, and then we stay with them another 12 to 18 months after they leave. The recidivism rate, in other words, men and women who come out and then go back to prison within 2 to 3 years, is 75% across the country. With this discipleship program, we've been able to lower it to under 10%. So we know that Jesus works.
Absolutely. Now, we want to keep it real, like I told you we would do on this program. We like to introduce you to some real people. We're going to give you an opportunity to meet someone that has reached out and has a program that allows post-crime achievers to come and work. Thank you. To come and work for them. We're also going to meet one of the post-crime achievers and his daughter and son-in-law and 2 adorable grandchildren. And the baby I tried to take home as a souvenir, but the mother wouldn't let me take the baby home. Let's look at that video now. We're talking to Bob Beaudry. Welcome to A to Z with B, Bob. Bob, we're in the process of informing our viewers about prison life and how serving a God of second chances can definitely impact their prison life. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, Bob? How did you become involved in assisting former inmates to re-enter our community?
After 40 years of many experiences, I taught law school, I practiced law, I had businesses. I was looking for an opportunity to fulfill God's purpose for me.
Now, let me stop for a second, Bob. You mentioned that you were a lawyer and that you also were doing God's work. Isn't that a bit of a contradiction?
I would agree. I would wholeheartedly agree. A challenge in the American legal system is application of our laws, and which are often inconsistent with biblical concepts, biblical principles. But to the question, I decided to volunteer, and I volunteered at a number of places. I volunteer at Bayside Church in their career coaching program. I approached or responded to a request for volunteers with the Placer County Child Advocates. But then I saw the Prison Fellowship Program and decided to volunteer there, and that seems to be resonating in my heart and in response to my prayers. So I've pursued that for this last year.
Now, Bob, you have a slightly different approach when you're dealing with these inmates. You refer to them as post-crime achievers. What does that mean?
The phrase actually comes from the regional director of Prison Fellowship, Rick Atchley, who is my mentor and my leader. I follow his guide. And their perspective, Prison Fellowship's perspective, is that if an inmate has successfully completed the in-custody program that is offered by Prison Fellowship, their heart has been changed and they have committed to God and to the Bible and to Christ. They want to change. After release, even with the best intention and with their heart and spirit fully committed to God, they are nevertheless faced with challenges. The economic and other practical challenges from the secular world. And what Second Wind seeks to do is provide resources to them, counseling, coaching, mentoring, job opportunities, training, everything that is necessary for someone to become economically viable in this world for the long term.
Now, what are the typical jobs that are given to post-crime achievers?
Post-crime achievers typically get the worst jobs, the most menial jobs at the lowest pay. And one challenge is that they often have fabulous skills, but they don't often get the opportunity to apply those skills or to connect them to a job opportunity. Our goal is to help them perfect those skills and help them perfect their presentation of those skills, and then connect to job opportunities where they will match up, so that they are not stuck in a rut of picking up garbage or jobs that are there's nothing wrong with that. But if I have, God's blessed me with skills greater than that or different than that, we try to connect them with opportunity that matches up the skills that God equipped them with.
And reading the Prison Ministry Fellowship website, they mention a term called Inner Change Prison Initiative. Please tell us about this concept, Bob.
Interchange Freedom Initiative is a program that exists in I think 13 or 14 states throughout the country. And the best examples of the program are in Texas, Nebraska, and Kansas. Essentially, that's a very intense in-custody program where the inmates go through a whole range of programs in custody to change their heart, get the commitment to God, but also give them the tools and skills they need to successfully move into society. Once they're released from custody, then there is continued support in a manner similar to what I've previously described, so that the post-crime achiever can successfully become a member of society. They have a success rate of over 90%. Wow. Frankly, it's higher than that, but they don't publicly talk about that rate. It's 90% so that they have only 10% of recidivism.
Now, networking and developing relationships are key components in any job market. Can you tell me how you work this into your program?
Those two terms are popular, networking and relationship. But people often don't understand how to network effectively and what networking actually consists of. And very often they don't understand what relationship means, at least in this context. And so, for example, relationship requires three things. Number one, it requires a fit. And that's kind of a chemistry between two people. One person cannot force themselves into a connection with another person. There has to be a fit. The second thing is sincere, authentic, mutual benefit. For a post-crime achiever, for a job seeker, they know what benefit they are seeking. They're looking for an opportunity. But unless they can find a meaningful need of the person that they're seeking to connect with, they won't find a mutual benefit. So one of the things we train people to do is first ask the other person about themselves, ask them about their situation, and try to find something that they sincerely need. If their need connects with the person, then there's an opportunity to serve. And if you come to a situation with a servant's heart, helping others, they will inevitably reciprocate. So mutual benefit is the second element of relationship, and the third element of relationship is time. Studies show that relationships don't develop in any less than 10 to 12 visits. And if you think about it, I'm not going to spend 3 times, 4 times, 5 times with someone unless there's at least some benefit or some interest on my side. I'm not going to spend 10 times unless it's something sincere. So one way to test how your contact with another person is developing and whether it's developing into a relationship is time. Are they willing to spend time with you? Are you willing to spend time with them? That's how a relationship is developed. Once you have a relationship, each of you can become a helper, a server, and a mentor for the other person in different areas.
There was a statement that you made that a person has one chance to make the best first impression. Please explain that.
The expression is you only have one chance to make a first impression. And that we've refined that expression by saying you only have one chance to make your best first impression. Everyone inevitably is asked the question, tell me about yourself. And even if the audience, the person who asked the question, is sincerely interested, unless you can get their attention quickly and clearly and get their attention, whatever you say is not going to be powerful, is not going to be impactful. We say what you have to say has to be compelling, relevant, and different in a positive way. You want to leave the person with the impression, wow, that person is special. That's a test of your best first impression. So, for example, I talked about the class that I teach at William Jessup University, organizational behavior. What is that class about? It's about more. William Jessup University has a slogan. They say, transforming tomorrow, today. Now, if I say that to you, transforming tomorrow, today, and stop, you're going to think, what does that mean? Transforming. Well, I understand that. Tomorrow, impact today. Means they are impacting, seeking to impact students in a positive, powerful manner so that the tomorrow for that student and for the community and for the world is changed for the good.
Now our next guest is Nick Matesic. Is there anything, Bob, you'd like to say about Nick before we bring him on?
Nick's first day on the job, he started to work, and later in the day my project manager came to me and said, wow, he's really special. He's never said that about anybody before.
I'd like to introduce you to Mr. Nick Matesic, who lives near Folsom, California. Nick is a former inmate who has turned his life around and is an excellent example of the benefits of the prison fellowship ministry. Nick, I hate to bother you, but I really don't hate to bother you because my viewers and I want to know more about you. Now, Nick, I noticed just a little bit of an accent. Are you from Brooklyn, New York, or Dallas, Texas?
Far away from there, no. I was born in a little village in Croatia. I grew up with no electricity, no running water, simple, very simple life, working land. Most of our parents didn't know how to read nor write. They never went to school, so it was a very simple life. I'm from Croatia.
Now, Croatia was formerly Yugoslavia, and I would challenge any of my viewers to try to spell Yugoslavia. Tell us a little bit about your upbringing.
Everybody around us was Catholic, but not really practicing Catholics. People live very secular life, even though by birth everybody was Catholic, and for most of them, and then it was communism. So while I went to school, it was not for young people to talk about God or to believe in God. It was not encouraged by the schools and by the. So I grew up being atheist, basically. Most of my life I denied God, I denied existence of God. You could have God, I didn't want a God. You know, it was, I thought I was okay. I was healthy, doing well, physically, business. So I just didn't think I needed God. And I lived most of my life, decent life, but I didn't need no God.
Now, how long have you been in the United States?
39 years.
What brought you here to America?
I was young. I was 20 years old, and I went to Italy, stayed there 9 months, and in 1972, I came to the United States for better opportunity to help out family financially, support them a little bit, and I did well in that. America has been very good to me, so I came for better opportunity of life.
Now, when you arrived to the United States, what was your biggest culture shock?
Everything was far away, everything was big, but another thing I think what I noticed as I started learning about culture, the families were not as tightly knit as I remember in a village. You know, family, I think there was much more, perhaps because democracy and liberal way of living, our way of life was all fundamental, a family. We needed to stick together perhaps to survive, but it was a very beautiful thing. In America, I noticed it was much more less respect between parents and children. You know, it was that was a big difference, I think.
Tell us about your family life when you arrived here in the United States.
Well, I didn't have no family. I had a distant cousin who helped me to come here. He paid for the airfare, and then I pay him back. So he helped me to come here, and I worked with him, and I lived with him, and then he cheated me for pay, and then I just left. One evening I left his home and I ended up in Hollywood, so that was the family, it was no good. And then I ended up living in Hollywood. I didn't speak English at that time, I didn't have no vehicle, so I hang around Yugoslav people and had a day jobs here and there till and as I learned more English and I was able to have better jobs, and slowly I moved on, you know, so.
Okay, Nick, now tell us a little bit about your personal relationship. I know you have a daughter named Michelle, and I want my viewers to know we're going to be meeting Michelle later in the during the episode.
Okay, she's a beautiful. She's 33 years old now. She have a wonderful husband, Matthew, and 2 sons, Desmond and Benjamin. I was dating her mom. Actually, we were living together, and Michelle was born November 25th, 1977, and in January 16th, first day back to work, after maternity leave, her mom was killed in a car accident. And so that was hard. That was very, very hard. And then I live with a grandma, her mom's mom. They're from El Salvador. So I live with the grandma and Michelle. And grandma wanted custody of child. She was fighting me for custody, and then she lost in a court, and then they disappeared. And I didn't see Michelle for almost 2 years. And then she came back to my life, and we've been together ever since.
Now, eventually you remarried, and there was some kind of friction between Michelle and your former wife. Can you tell us a little bit about that? That was really a sad story.
Well, Patty adopted Michelle, and we were family. We were a fine family. And then we had Courtney, my younger daughter, Courtney. She's 20 now. And it was beautiful. It was really, Patty was working. I had a business, painting business. We were doing well financially. I thought it was harmony there. It was, so I didn't see no friction really between, maybe it was not as mom and daughter. It was a little bit different, but yet there was not a friction. Michelle was always easy child. She was never trouble. She was just easy to deal with, easy to love. She was just a nice girl. She still is.
Now I want to tell our viewers we're going to meet Michelle in just a little bit.
Yeah. But something happened. As soon as Michelle turned 18, she kicked her out of the house. And I didn't see her coming. And so I didn't see her coming, and then and it was struggle. You know, I was almost put on the spot to choose. Either you choose Michelle or you choose Courtney and I. And I think no man should be put in a situation where he had to choose between 2 children.
Now, I don't want to go into details, but I do know somewhere along the line something took a terrible turn.
Terrible, yes.
And the result was domestic violence.
Yes.
During this time, you had a couple of attorneys, and your last attorney asked you to plead no contest. You want to tell us a little bit about that?
I had no idea what it meant. So I asked him, he was paid attorney. My friends, Mr. Ross, Irene and Michael Ross, they were producer of Trees Company. And they were close friends of mine. They were my customers. So they helped me pay and find lawyer. So I trusted that lawyer. I really thought he's a trusted lawyer. So to the second trial, he said, we cannot go to second trial. We'll go to the judge. And he said, to plead no contest. I never heard that term before. I had no idea what it meant. So I asked him, what does that mean? So he said, all it means, you want to put it all behind you and go on. So I said, well, okay, I can do that. So when I went to the courtroom and I pleaded no contest, everything changed. I can see faces of people and judge. I knew something was wrong, but I couldn't stop it. I couldn't change it. I couldn't. And then you had 30 days to withdraw your plea, but it was impossible for me to do it.
With all that's happened to you, you could probably justify having an attitude of being bitter or angry, but you're not. Why?
No, no, I have beautiful life. Actually, prison became a great benefit to my life.
While you were in prison, you stated that you started your spiritual journey. Now, what did that entail? I mean, what was that all about?
In the beginning, I was just searching for kindness, peace, love, completeness of human life, a spiritual journey. So I thought I was Catholic, so I was going to Catholic Mass, I was going to Buddhist meditation, I was going Seventh-day Adventist meeting, I was going to chapel.
You were trying it all, right?
All of it. Because I thought they were all the same. I didn't know the difference. I thought they were all the same. And slowly, I was learning there was a chaplain, Carl Specht, and he was strictly teaching the Word, from Word to Word, Bible. And the more I was going steady to that. Almost every time the chapel would open, I would go there, and slowly I grasped enough to know this is it. There was Jesus, there was salvation, there was forgiveness, there was peace, there was joy, there was love. All this wonderful life, it was right there. So the walls, I even wrote a poem, the prison of walls, concrete and steel, it's easy to bear when you have God in your heart. And so that's what happened. And so I started searching for God, and so I was born again Christian, became right in prison.
During this time, you became the chaplain's assistant, so you really were dealing with an angel unaware.
Like angel.
Now, was that a waste of time?
No, he was. I was shocked because I didn't think I have nothing to offer to. So he asked me if I would like to be his assistant. I was honored and accepted it. I just want to be a servant, and I told him that I just want to serve in whatever capacity God can use me. Here I am, and God was opening doors. I've been singing in a choir for a long time before I became chaplain assistant. That I was baptized, and we have a very close working relation. He had a chaplain on each yard. He had about 12, 13, maybe 14 chaplain assistants. So we were as a group, but we would come to the meetings. We would discuss working of the church. So I was introduced to not only to God, but how to function working of the church. So it was a great blessing.
Nick, you mentioned when you were in prison that you found freedom while you were in prison. How could you find freedom behind stone walls and bars and things of that sort? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
I think freedom goes beyond. If the Son sets you free, you'll be free indeed.
The Son, the S-O-N, correct?
The Son, yeah. The Son is, and that really is true. If you are free in your heart, it doesn't matter where you're at. If you are in prison, if you are in Auschwitz, people were dying, in concentration camps, and yet there were hope. There were hope. There were peace. There were joy. So my time in prison was not wasted. It really was not.
Now there's an expression, bloom where you are planted. Now what does that mean to you?
It means that I realized that even in the desert, there are beautiful flowers. Even in prison, there's beautiful life. So wherever you are, this is it. Make the best out of it. Bloom to the fullest.
What we're going to do now is to move to a different location, and you'll have the opportunity of meeting Nick's daughter, Michelle. Hi, this is Bea again, and we're here at the Hawkins family compound, as you can see. And this is where Nick Matesic lives with his beautiful daughter, Michelle, and her handsome husband and his son-in-law, Matthew. And we have Benjamin. You want to say hello, Benjamin?
Say hi.
Hi, and this is the baby I'm trying to get. So far, I'm not doing really well. I've been trying to either get their KitchenAid mixer or the baby, and I'm not making any kind of headway. I want to be able to introduce you to this family for you to understand the kind of support that Nick has during his reentry and his journey. Michelle, you want to tell me a little bit about your relationship with your dad? During our earlier interview, he thinks you fly. He thinks you're like the eighth wonder of the world.
My dad and I have always been extremely close. An unspoken bond that we never really had to tell each other. We kind of always knew that we could never be torn apart. Mm-hmm. And it's been like that from day one. He is my first memory from when I was a little girl, and he will always be a part of my life.
That's wonderful. Now, how were you able to maintain contact with your dad? He was incarcerated, so I mean, that's not easy.
No, it's not. He wrote a lot of letters and a lot of phone calls, mm-hmm. And that's how it was done. I would wait for a phone call or a letter because I was not able to call myself.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, now let's talk a little bit to Matthew. Matthew, He's a character. I can tell already. He is definitely a character. Now, how long have you been married to Michelle?
We're 4 years tomorrow.
Well, happy anniversary
Thank
to you. 4 years tomorrow. Well, how did you react when she told you, I've got a wonderful dad, however, he's on vacation?
Well, you know, it's almost a decade ago that Michelle and I first met. And from the beginning, she was quite open about it. Very honest about what had happened, why he was where he was, what the future held for him. She wasn't as certain as what the future held for her, or what it would be on the other side. But no, she was quite open with it. And frankly, you know, I have a perspective on people who go to prison. You know, you have two types of people. You have the one person who's a career criminal, a professional.
Right.
And the rest of us in society who I would say are, you know, a step or two away from going to prison at any given day.
Right.
Given the right chronic circumstance, we can be pushed to step over that line. And the justice system metes out, you know, it's fair justice, and the victim or the survivor deserves that justice. And the real test, in my opinion, is when a good man goes to prison. He may have committed a crime, doesn't make him a bad man, especially if he lived a good life before that. The test for him is, can he stay a good man?
Right.
You know, 11 years or you know, 13 years in the system, you know, you have choices to make, and you can give up. You can give up on everything that you worked for prior in your life, and you can say, forget it all. I'm going to do what I have to do to survive in here. Or you can stick to your grit, and you can continue to be a good man. And, you know, contrary to what Nick may believe, society, this community in particular, in our family, is more fortunate to have him with us than he is to have us.
Oh, wow. What a wonderful, wonderful statement. Nick, you want to tell our viewers a little bit about how you feel about the level of support you've received from your daughter and your son-in-law and the babies and the cats and the dogs and the turtle doves and everything else that's out here?
I don't think words can explain the joy and completeness of life that I experience with all of us together. You know, I don't have the words. It's overwhelming, and I'm just the most fortunate man in the world, I think, to have Michelle, to be with her again, to have Benjamin and Desmond and Matthew. It's just too beautiful for the words to describe. You know, just too beautiful. And we are a good family. You know, they tell me all the time, you know, they are so supportive of everything I do. They're just, they are wonderful. Matthew and Michelle, they're just, and I have such a good time with Benjamin. We go for bike ride, we work in the garden, we look for the worms, and it's like just complete family life. Just complete family life.
Do you like your grandpa living with you? What's your grandpa like? Tell us. Is he a nice guy? Why? Why is your grandpa nice? What does he do?
What do you like doing with him?
Bike rides.
He can ride a bike? He's an old man. He can ride a bike? No.
Picking apples.
Picking apples.
You pick apples where?
At the trees.
At the trees. That's a good place to find an apple, on the trees. Well, hopefully my viewers, wonderful viewers, next time that you hear about a person who was in prison, perhaps re-entering to the community, you'll look at things a little bit differently. Nick, if you could tell our viewers anything about, I don't know, any concerns they might have with regard to people re-entering the community who were once incarcerated, what would you say to them?
I think it's every person is individual. Everybody is different. I know many wonderful men in prison. I know some bad men in prison. And I hope that the system would know which are good people to be released and treat. I don't know. It's hard question, because I know many wonderful people who will never commit no other crime, but I know there are some people who, like Matthew was saying, are career criminals, and I don't know what's the answer for them. I'm not sure. So I think our system is good and sound, and I think they know people, and they know they have good criteria to know who people are. So I hope they'll screen out very well who is eligible to be out and who's not. So we have to trust the system as much as we can.
Well, see, I think this is an excellent example of what happens when you choose to serve a God of second chances. Thank you. And thank you all for participating.
Thank you.
I'll fix my heart.
Wow. Wasn't that powerful? I want to thank, first of all, Bob Beaudry and his willingness to have the kind of construction project that allows someone like Nick Matesic to participate in. And we want to thank Nick and his daughter Michelle and her husband for having the strength and the character to open up and to share their very moving stories. There are people connected with these post-crime achievers, and all they want is for their loved ones to be able to re-enter into society and to be gainfully employed. Richard, is there anything that you would like to leave our viewers with?
Well, you know, Nick has become a good friend. And what I would share with your viewers is there's hundreds of men and women like Nick. And then there's families with those men and women. And all they need, as you mentioned earlier, is a second chance and a church home and someone to come alongside them to mentor them, to disciple them. I've had the privilege of doing that with Nick. And I want to invite your viewers to consider being a mentor, to come with us into the prison. We know that God's word says that the fields are white for harvest, but the laborers are few.
Right, right.
And that's still true. We need folks to partner with us, to come with us in the prisons, to get involved and see what God is doing, and then to walk with these men and women when they come home.
That's wonderful. Now I want to leave you with a thought. The Bible says in Matthew chapter 7, verses 2 through 5, "For in the same way you judge others, you will be judged. And with the same measure you use, it will be measured unto you." So keep that in mind. Judge not, yet ye be judged. And thank you for watching. Please tune in next week. Be blessed.
Six years ago, no one predicted the economic storm poised to strike the U.S. and the Central Valley. It's been devastating.
In a new report today, the government says 44 million Americans now live in poverty. 4 million joined the list just last year.
It is the largest number of Americans living in poverty since they began keeping track 50 years ago.
People are worse off than even we may think.
6 years after the bubble burst, home prices have still not hit bottom.
We've had an 8-day losing streak in the Dow that in percentage terms puts it on par, close to that percentage loss those 2 days in 1929.
It was the worst day on Wall Street since the crash of 1987.
A 6-year economic nightmare. But then, there's God. He's been faithful and just through the storm. It's time to celebrate. St. Paul has weathered the storm and is now on the brink of burning its third mortgage, despite the economic climate. We have several celebrations leading up to the big day in June, with several guest speakers,
including the Reverend Maurice A. Bates.
I could not live without God. I can't make it without God. That I'm nothing without Him. I need Him every day just to make it. That's the unthinkable. Will a man rob God? No!
Celebrate what God has provided for us beginning this Sunday. Go to stpaulsac.org for dates and details. St. Paul Missionary Baptist Church has weathered the economic storm.
This is a family celebration. Mom, dad, teens, kids, everybody come on out.
Beyond Bereavement, my television show, came about as a result of Alan Fisher, who's with Eastlawn, having read my book, Farewell, My Friend. Based upon the book, which dealt with how to address end-of-life issues, Alan thought it might really be an excellent platform for a television show. I was fortunate enough to meet with RCC-TV, and they agreed with Alan, and off we went with our television show, Beyond Bereavement. Now, is this, what, straight? Oh, well. It's not drugs, I guarantee you. How about that?
A little more.
Is my hair all right? I don't want to look like Bob's big boy. Is it down? I lost 8 inches out of the top of my hair. You've heard this story before. And I lost 18 pounds. I don't have 18 pounds to lose. I know it's called sweaty yoga, hot box yoga. You're going to actually see me in a little bit on some footage where I'm in the studio sweating like a pig. It's 105, I think it's 300 degrees in the room. Maybe not that hot. 300 degrees?
Not quite, 105.
Okay.
Those are some of the connections I personally found with this particular Buddha.
Reverend Brian, this is a really interesting photograph that we have right here. This is the Dalai Lama. There's got to be a story behind this. Tell us a little bit about the Pet Education and Training Center.
Well, the Pet Education and Training Center helps people with disabilities by helping them train their own dog.
And as you can tell by now, our show has gone way beyond bereavement. We're so far beyond bereavement, we're now talking about raw foods. I mean, these are really genuinely good.
So mushrooms can be your meat. Instead of the ham hock, you have, and it has a texture of kind of a meat.
This would be so good with a ribeye. No, just kidding. Another great advantage of being a part of the RCC TV family is that your show is not just limited to the greater Sacramento area. My show is simulcast across the nation. I have people who are looking at the show in New York. The other advantage is that you can also have the different episodes uploaded on your website. I even have a couple of episodes on YouTube, so people are able to look at that, particularly for marketing opportunities for me as an author and a lecturer, and certainly for RCC TV. And we certainly hope that anyone that's interested, hey, go after your dream, follow your dream, and become a member of RCC TV's family.
Hello, my name is Alan Fisher, and I'm president of East Lawn. East Lawn has been joining with families in creating meaningful celebrations and tributes to honor their loved ones since 1904. You may be unaware that during the last 15 years, consolidation has been the trend in our industry, which has resulted in fewer, much larger, and less personal funeral and burial companies. That is not the case with East Lawn. We remain locally owned and managed on site, which allows us to maintain high standards of performance, integrity, and compassion. We consider ourselves guardians of history from generation to generation by preserving the heritage of individuals, family, and community. Furthermore, as well as being part of the fabric of Sacramento for over 100 years, we are truly a single source for all of your needs. We provide caring traditional services, including assistance and selection, in all aspects of funeral planning. Cremations are handled by our professional staff on our premises in a dignified and caring manner. We provide unmatched beauty in a secure setting for burials, as well as other options such as urn gardens, indoor and outdoor mausoleum facilities, personalized glass front niches, and other dignified choices. Our funeral services are personal, caring celebrations of life that match the wishes of the families we serve and the honor of loved ones remembered. We are committed to providing support to the families we're privileged to serve, both before and after the actual funeral services are conducted. Our experienced staff is always available to answer questions and help with advanced planning. East Lawn faithfully maintains an inventory of helpful grief materials and is an active supporter of Bereavement Network Resources of Sacramento, which prepares and distributes information about many loss support groups and services. Our staff is also available to conduct thoughtful and informative educational programs and workshops within our community. And thanks to today's technological advances, East Lawn is actively developing opportunities for people to receive information regarding services being held and to offer condolences to loved ones and friends when distance and other circumstances make attending services difficult. you may visit our website at www.eastlawn.com to learn more. And finally, many families may think that our East Lawn Memorial Park site in East Sacramento is our only location. Actually, we also provide the same experienced, caring service at 4 other locations as well. East Lawn Elk Grove, East Lawn Mortuary and Sierra Hills Memorial Park on Greenback Lane in Sacramento, Andrews and Greeley Mortuary on Fruit Ridge Road in Sacramento, and Albert Brown Mortuary in Oakland. Whichever location you choose, please be assured that we will dedicate ourselves to fulfilling your wishes, responding to your needs, and exceeding your expectations in every way. You can count on that. At East Lawn, we honor heritage, and we believe that as we honor heritage, we can help families heal. We heal the hurts, we can bring hope, and we can bring happiness. We appreciate and are grateful for the opportunity of serving you and your family. Thank you.